The playboat, I want to make this even more rockered. So that rocker has to be right there. Chiseling, this is the front, that's what we took off. And so now this is the shape that we have. Cool, because when you sit into a raft, you're already back here. And this really shows that I really want to make a boat that's omnidirectional. You know what I mean? If I sit back, hell yeah, I'm on that. This is your triple divide. If I go this way, I'm on that. And hell yeah. Here's my neutral position with my, and look at that neutral position, you know what I mean? If I shift this way, you know, if I just shift over, hell yeah, but back to that neutral is nice and flat. And why? Because we have, you know, now the only kind of flat surface on there. And then so if I do, you know what I mean, put my feet down, hell yeah, then I can just tip onto that surface. Typically in a kayak, if you go sideways, you actually reduce the amount of surface in the water. Where I think in the neutral position, man, you just want to be spinning like a top. And then I think if you edge over here, just like a snowboard, you actually get a larger surface. You know what I mean? You have to be effectively high siding, but then when you do high side, hell yeah, you're releasing all that. Now you're just chilling on that surface. And in side surfs, hell yeah, you're just doing that. Alright, hell yeah. So this is a Piranha Burn, and we're using this as you know, a test for our R1 design. So when we take this to the lake and we actually put it with two boats, we can figure out the V-shaped hole. This video is just showing that, you know, even if I jump to this, now you gotta pretend the boat's upside or right side up. This is the front of the boat. When I jump to the bow, the rocker doesn't start until almost like right there, and even right here. And so in an R1 boat, I think this is what I want to really test. I've always said that in the back, this is the triple divide point. This is kind of where you're going to be sitting, where you can sit back onto, and I do like the half slice stern because they're usually like just tipped. And so the second you tip back on that, then you're fully released over here. And then the other thing, to have a quadrant. Now in an R1 raft, I really think you need to make this, you know, definitely hella more pronounced, but you still have an angle through there, and then just being on this quadrant right in there. Hell yeah. But then what we're gonna show is we're gonna chop this foam down. And so when I am sitting right here on the back thwart, you know, and my feet are forward, all I can do is just shift my shin up against the front thwart. And what I need that to do is to rock it all the way onto the front, you know, nose progressively. And so I think the only way to do that is you have to start the rocker way back here. So that's what we're going to have. When we're in the seated position, this flat portion, you know, is only going to be, you know, so much. But then when I shift my shin, now we're actually already sloped. So we're going to take this foam template, here's the back, and then we're just going to, you know, really shave and then progressively rock that up. So then when we are on this back, you know, so if we're sitting right here, if we move back just a little bit, heck yeah, you do that. But then when we shift our shin up against this one, and it's so interesting that even a model works. If I put my shin up against there, nothing happens. And so the only way that's going to actually work is if, let's say, this is my weight and then feet, and I could actually put my weight on my feet or shift that. That's when I need this thing to tip. And let's see where it does tip. You know what I mean? Same thing. And I actually modeled this after even a playboat, you know what I mean, which has a flat surface. And so I think, you know, even with a playboat, I want to make this even more rockered. So that rocker has to be right there. You know what I mean? And so if I do push up against at least right on that thwart, and this is close, but it's not good enough. So let's chisel this and see where we're at. Alright, hell yes. This is the first round of chiseling. This is the front. That's what we took off. And so now this is the shape that we have. And it just makes sense now, you know what I mean? And so, like, you know, it's almost actually wants to nosedive. And that's cool, because when you sit into a raft, you're already back here. And this really shows that I really want to make a boat that's omnidirectional. I don't think I would have come across this if it wasn't for, you know what I mean, kind of the effort that I put in. And it's just interesting that you know, it's just like, okay, this is making sense now. Now, if you go sit on the nose, hell yeah, you're going to, like, dive the nose in and stuff. But still, you know what I mean? If I sit back, hell yeah, I'm on that. This is your triple divide. If I go this way, I'm on that. And hell yeah. And then if I actually, let's get the camera like this. So here's my neutral position with my, and look at that neutral position, you know what I mean? If I shift this way, you know, if I just shift over, hell yeah, but back to that neutral is nice and flat. And why? Because we have, you know, now the only kind of flat surface on there. Hell yeah. Now this might be a bit much, but at least from a demonstration perspective shows. And then so if I do, you know what I mean, put my feet down, hell yeah, then I can just tip onto that surface. And I think what would be useful, you know, typically in a kayak, if you go sideways, you actually reduce the amount of surface in the water. Where I think in the neutral position, man, you just want to be spinning like a top. And then I think if you edge over here, just like a snowboard, you actually get a larger surface. Now, we definitely took off way too much on this. We were totally experimenting with a 60-degree angle. So hell yeah. So we just need a traditional step down. This was our step down, and you've seen that in my other videos, you know, where you just have some sort of step down, and once you get to there, booyah, now you're on another flat surface. And so, but those step downs for sure, I want them to be as high as possible and as far out as possible, to where the boat's not going to tip up a huge amount, but still, like, this isn't going to hit in waves. But, I mean, if we do have a V-shaped hole, the only thing we don't have on this is a V-shape in our hole. But typically, you know what I mean, if I'm trying to, you know, put this edge up, you know, so it doesn't hit the incoming current, then hell yeah, then I can actually put that edge up. And see, this stair step is just way too huge. You don't need that. All you would need is like about that much. But now you see the most important thing about this design is really reducing the catches here and there. So let's lift this up again, and hell yeah, now you see that, but and then you also, I think this could be very interesting, having this long, you know, that's almost, if you get that up onto edge, that's what I'm thinking, is that just like a snowboard, now you actually have a longer edge. And all you have to do is just foam this out to where you're sitting in here, you feel natural and normal. And literally, you could have that steep of an angle on an R1 boat, and it would just be, you know, comfortable. And so, hell yeah. So this is getting closer to actually what, you know, if I was to actually take a huge chunk of foam, start fiberglassing, like, what would I want? But typically, this doesn't have to be that big. Get better with my adjectives. But hell yeah, it doesn't have to be that big, because a lot of different reasons. Like, you know, effectively we're shorting it up just because, you know, we're already, this whole video is like, if I put my feet and knees up against the front, then, you know, the boat's gonna rock her up against the front. And so, hell yes, that is kind of fascinating. I don't know if this would actually work. It seems a little bit extreme, but it seems like something to test, you know what I mean, where you're just on this surface, and hell yeah, then like your whole boat is up and out. Here's your driving, forward, sure you can get some forward, but yeah, this is opposite of my boat. My boat has long and flat in the middle. Now it is fast. I don't think so. I think when I drop it onto a rail, it's just two rails. It's the long, narrow floor and then the outer tube. And so I have been putting rocker in my boat, trying to. Still, the floor is dead flat, which probably does give it some speed. But still, what we do in my boat is we put it onto edge and we just reduce the surface area. And so the take home on... Alright, hell yeah. I was saying that the take home on this is that you still need longer, areas so you can go faster. I think if you have too much rocker and you're just on like a point like that, it's going to be difficult to get through the water. But I think there's another aspect. R1 is so weighted down, it feels so sluggish with wetted drag. And even in R1, like I'll literally pry the boat sideways. And so any sort of rocker this way, or just being on a balance point and just wedging the boat through the water that way, is going to be way more efficient. You can just see that efficiency compared to this, you know what I mean? And then wedging it through the water with all that wetted surface. So this is typically what's happening in a current R1 boat, and then this is what I think you want to feel. You can be huge instability, because the fact that this can just flip over, so, and I know that even with my boat, you know what I mean? You have to be effectively high siding, but then when you do high side, hell yeah, you're releasing all that. Now you're just chilling on that surface. And in side surfs, hell yeah, you're just doing that. And so what we were working on with this was just having like a 60-degree edge. So if you did sit in a side surf, you could put that in. So this is too much, but hell yeah. Yeah, so it might be so definitely a stair step in there, not just a 60-degree corner. So we started the stair step there, maybe make that stair step a little higher, and then that should engage right about there. But you can choose the angle that you engage with that stair step, and then come back over here. Let's say you were sideways. Hell yeah, now if you're side surfing, now those, like that portion of the boat and that portion of the boat aren't hitting the incoming current, and you even got water coming underneath. Hell yeah. And so, and then the back corner, you know what I mean? When you're actually diving in, let's say you're surfing, and you're just turning low into a trough, you can angle this up, and hell yeah, now you could actually, just kind of surf up in, because this back surf, you know what I mean, from the Colorado boaters is hella sick. And I think you want that just from just sitting in that back position, you know what I mean? Whereas just like your neutral positions here, and then you just sit back and hell yeah. And now you're just surfing it up. Alright, so I think we're getting close to what we want. And it's just fascinating to be like, yeah, no duh. Remove that. And yeah, it just took a while to be like, well, if I actually do want the front to be rockered when I go up there, you know what I mean, what does that look like? Alright, hell yeah. I'm not saying anything else, so booyah, that's a video. Hell yeah.